Hello everyone and welcome to Dungeons and Death Battles, the series where we search for the most lethal monsters in all of Dungeons and Dragons. And today it is my pleasure to invite you all to witness a battle outside our usual league, as we are about to initiate a grudge match spectacle as Devil clashes against Demon, and the forces of the Nine Hells are pitted against those from the Abyss to see which truly has the most vicious denizen among their number. I, of course, speak about a pair of fan favourites from the CR5 League, as the Barbed Devil returns once more, this time to face off against the mighty Barlgura, a creature which has most definitely proven itself in the battle-hardened pits of our grand arena. To those who spectated during the CR5 League, these mighty monsters are no strangers, and it is by popular demand that they return to battle tonight. As always, our arena kobolds are making their pre-fight preparations, all while the Barbed Devil receives instruction from its pit fiend master, while the Barlgura gets in some practice of its very own, wrestling with its Nalfashne coach, each corner showing extreme enthusiasm for the fight to come, as after all, there is more than just personal pride at stake here. The political balance of the Hells and Abyss could be twisted and contorted as a result of what happens this evening. Anyway, while our fighters prepare for the coming onslaught, let's jump into a quick combatant analysis, starting off with the blue corner and the Barbed Devil. As many of you will be well aware at this point, the Barbed Devil blazes its way into the arena with a hit point average of 110 and AC of 15. These are backed up with an incredibly strong stat spread, with the lowest amongst these being a 12 for intelligence, with 17 dexterity and 18 constitution being highlights. This spiked menace is resistant to cold damage and boasts immunity to fire and poison damage, as well as the poisoned condition, and also has that ever useful magic resistance trait, granting it advantage on rolls against spells and other magics. The Devil can rake in with a crippling multi-attack, making one claws and one tail attack, or bowling forth with a pair of hurl flame attacks, this famously having a range of up to 150 feet. This fiend also wears a leathery skin of barbed hide, which inflicts piercing damage on anything foolish enough to grapple it, or unfortunate enough to be grappled by it. And while all that may sound like a sure thing, the Devil will be facing a truly monstrous foe tonight in the form of the demonic Barlgura, a towering ape-like fiend. The Barlgura has made its mark in the arena already and leaps onto the battlefield with an 85 hit point average and 15 AC. The Barlgura's thick hide and extreme fortitude provides it with resistances to cold, fire, and lightning damage, as well as straight up immunity to poison damage and the poisoned condition. Once again, the Barlgura also backs this up with a relatively strong stat spread, although it's not quite as consistent as the Barbed Devil, with lows to intelligence and charisma, with 7 and 9 in those respectively, but with its highlights being strength and constitution, with those coming in at 18 and 16. But then, as we have seen previously, the Barlgura doesn't need to rely purely on its stat spread, as its multi-attack is brutal, with Thrash having the capability to knock a target prone, with Tormenting Bite dealing a relentless 2d6 plus 4 points of piercing damage, plus 2d12 points of psychic damage on a hit. This Hulk can also throw in with some innate spellcasting, with Entangle and 6th level Phantasmal Killer being some of the more punishing choices in its arsenal. And the cherry on top of the Barlgura's already formidable kit is its ability to use a bonus action to leap up to 40 feet by spending 10 feet of movement, an ability that means that this lump of demonic rage is never too far away. And with all that said, it looks like the kobolds are prepared. The arena has been swept and cleared. The Barbed Devil and the Barlgura both also appear to have mopped up and finished with their training, which does mean that there is only one thing for it, and that of course is that it is time to roll in for initiative. We will of course be using our usual arena rules, which does mean that monsters start 30 feet apart, there is no fleeing the arena, victory is achieved by kill only, and outside influence is not allowed. And we will kick off today's battle rolling in for the Barbed Devil first, of course using its +3 initiative initiative modifier. And so the Barbed Devil, as always, looking to get a clean start right here, hopefully ahead of the Barlgura, and therefore it will be rolling in 1d20 plus 3 to this, looking to get as high as possible a number. But that is a terrible start to today's combat, with the Barbed Devil rolling in with a stone cold natural one. It would appear that looking across the arena to see its demonic foe, the Barlgura, towering in front of it is enough to make even a devil quiver, and that has forced in with a roll of a natural one, which does mean that the Barlgura is going to have to do something really bad here in order to forgo the initiative. However, that is the way of the arena, and the Barlgura will now get to roll in. Of course, if it does roll a natural one, it does only have a +2 modifier, which will see it go last. And so the Barlgura is going to look to use its intimidating factor here, pushing through, rolling in with initiative, +2 to this, looking to beat a natural one. As it rolls in with a 4 with its +2 modifier, bringing that up to a 6, which does mean that by the very skin of its fangs, the Barlgura will be kicking things off in tonight's grudge match as the 9 hells face off against the abyss. And there is nothing else for it really. As we kick things off, the klaxon sounds, and immediately the Barlgura uses that leap bonus action to hurl itself across the arena, easily making landfall in front of the Barbed Devil, where it will now initiate further by throwing in with its tried and tested technique of battering its opponents to pieces with its multi-attack. And so Barlgura rolling in here with its very first thrash attack versus the Barbed Devil's AC of 15. And so now it does have a +7 to this, looking to be that AC of 15, rolling in. And with a 10 + 7 for 17, that first strike lands. And so now the Barlgura will be throwing in with 1d10 + 4 points of bludgeoning damage. So rolling that in as the Barlgura inflicts some initial pain upon the Barbed Devil. And that right there could most certainly have been better, with that 2 + 4 making for 6 points of damage, which will be dropping the Barbed Devil from 110 to 104 hit points. But that is not the mainstay of this ability. As the Barlgura connects, it knocks the Barbed Devil prone, sweeping the leg and leaving its foe on its back, which does of course mean that the Barlgura will now be rolling in all of its subsequent attacks at advantage, which is one of the crippling factors that makes the Barlgura's kit so versatile and effective. And so now it will be rolling in yet another thrash attack, coming through at advantage here, +7 to hit, looking to be that AC of 15. And an 18 right there, +7 for 25. Absolute ease right there from the Barlgura as it inflicts yet another 1d10 + 4 points of bludgeoning damage, rolling in. And that is a little bit better right there, straight down the middle, with a 5 + 4 for an additional 9 points of thrash damage, as the Barbed Devil is brought from 104 to 95 hit points. But that strike, of course, opening the way for the Tormenting Bite, the most crippling attack in the Barlgura's arsenal, and it is going to be throwing in with that next, once again at advantage, thanks to that Barbed Devil being prone. So rolling in. But we have rolled in with 2 4s, with that +7 only bringing that Tormenting Bite to hit up to 11, which does mean, ridiculously, that attack is gonna miss. Those double 4s presenting themselves at an opportune time for the Barbed Devil, which has managed to evade the bulk of the Barlgura's potential damage output here in round 1. And the demon will not be too happy about that. But with all that said, it won't be able to do particularly much else, as we do now hand over to the Barbed Devil, which currently finds itself in the risky position of being prone underneath its large opponent, and it is going to look to rectify this as soon as possible, and will of course be using half of its 30 feet of movement to stand, righting itself and breaking away from that condition. However, it does find itself in a pretty brutal position right here in melee combat with the Barlgura, and therefore it only has one option really here, and that is to throw in with a multi-attack of its very own. And that means that the Barbed Devil will now be throwing in with its very first claws attack, as it looks to rake and slash away at the Barlgura's hit point total. And of course, should it land this, the opposition will find itself grappled, which will once again lead to more damage from that barbed hide. And so Barbed Devil rolling in here, a +6 to hit. This is the Barlgura's AC of 15. Although a 2, the presence of the Barlgura is truly terrifying, and it being so close just means that the Barbed Devil has been unable to get a strike in here, lifting its arm and just getting parried by the bulk of the demon. But it's not over yet, as the Devil can still roll in with a tail attack, and that is exactly what it's going to do. +6 to hit once again, with a 13 +6 right there for 19, finally securing a hit as the Barbed Devil manages to get some damage on the board. And it will now be rolling in with 2d10 plus 3 points of slashing damage, which is absolutely nothing to turn your nose up at. So rolling in, let's see what it can do. Although that is brutal, that is terribly bad. The Barlgura just managing to dodge out of the way of that tail strike, the piercing tip just managing to graze through some of the fur and making a very, very small flesh wound on the top of one of the shoulder blades there, with a 1 and a 3 on the dice for 4, plus that 3-point modifier to make for 7 points of damage from that tail attack, which will drop the Barlgura from 85 to 78 hit points, but it's a far cry from what the Barbed Devil was looking for here. And for now, it is going to sturdy up in its place and is going to brace for what is to come, as we do hand over to the Barlgura, which once again is going to initiate combat with its thrash attack, as it once again looks to render the Barbed Devil prone. And so rolling in right here, +7 to hit. And with a 14 +7 for 21, that is yet again another short fire connection from the demon, as once again the Devil finds itself pinned down on the ground once again in that prone position. And so first things first, 1d10 plus 4 points of bludgeoning damage from the Barlgura coming in, with that rolling in for an ever progressing 6 plus 4 for 10 more points of damage, as the Barlgura opens up ferociously, dropping the Barbed Devil from 95 to 85 hit points, and once again, more importantly, rendering its opponent prone as that second thrash attack fires in, once again at advantage, +7 to hit. And with a 15 +7 for 22, that is yet another connection against the Barbed Devil. Although we see in the corner there that natural 1 looming ominously, although this is an advantage and therefore is irrelevant. And so once again, 1d10 plus 4 points of bludgeoning damage. The trend so far has for this damage to have increased each time the Barlgura has struck. Can it continue onwards? And it can, with an 8 +4 for 12 more points of damage, which will be dropping the Barbed Devil from 85 to 73 hit points, as once more the gates open wide for the Barlgura to make its tormenting bite attack. Again, at advantage here, although that didn't do it much good last time. Can it up its game this round? And will it manage to make that connection against the Barbed Devil? Let's find out. Rolling in, +7 to hit at advantage. But not by rolling in with a 6, it can't. And a second natural 1 there on that offside dice. That is insane luck from the Barlgura. Something is clearly preventing its maw from making that bite. Perhaps it has seen the Barbed Devil's spiked hide and is thinking otherwise. Perhaps planning around it and trying to look for an opening against some softer flesh and tissue. Hasn't found it yet, it would seem, as even on advantage, a 6 +7 for 13 is not going to be enough to connect. And the Barlgura does look frustrated by this, but that will end its turn, as we do hand over to the Barbed Devil once again, which is going to have to use half of its movement yet again to stand breaking that prone condition. And there really isn't much else it can do here other than just swing in and hope. And therefore it will be doing just that once again, lashing out with those devilish claws, as it does look to make a greater impact on the Barlgura than it did last time. So rolling in +6 versus Barlgura's AC of 15. And there we have it, an 18 +6 for 24 is much more like it. And that does mean that the Barlgura will now be subject to 2d6 plus 3 points of piercing damage, and as it is a large or smaller creature, it will now have the grappled condition. So first things first here, rolling in 2d6 plus 3 points of piercing damage, with a 6 on one of the dice and 2 on the second to make for 8, plus that 3-point modifier, bringing that all the way up to 11 points of damage. That is better there from the Barbed Devil, as it drops the Barlgura from 78 to 67 hit points, and of course activates the grappled condition versus its foe, as we now watch as as the tail of the Barbed Devil flicks around ominously as it prepares to make another strike against the demon. So once again, rolling in, tail attack +6 to hit versus the Barlgura's AC of 15 with a 9 + 6, just making that number. Of course, 9 + 6 for exactly 15. That does mean that the Barbed Devil has secured a second strike, and therefore it will once again be dealing 2d10 + 3 points of slashing damage to its foe. Rolling in, looking for a much better result than last time here, and a much better result than last time it has achieved with an 8 and a 6 coming together to make for 14 points of damage, plus that 3-point modifier to bring that all the way up to 17. That is much more like it, as it drops the Barlgura from 67 to 50 hit points here, as that tail finally finds some kind of weak point. Looks like that one landed just below the armpit there, which will be causing some pain to the demon, as dark ichor does appear to be dripping from that open wound. And with that, we will once again be handing over to the Barlgura's turn. Now it does find itself having a Barbed Devil clinging firmly to it, but even with all that said, it is going to initiate by dropping in with a thrash attack. So rolling in +7 to hit here, and with a 17 + 7 for 24. Again, the Barlgura is not letting up on those thrash attacks, as it does make a connection once more, and does seem to have somehow tripped the Barbed Devil, which has become prone once more, but also finds itself in the odd position where it is still able to cling to the Barlgura and its underbelly, which does remain grappled, which is an interesting interaction that I'm sure we will come back to in a moment. But for now, we will be dealing 1d10 + 4 points of bludgeoning damage to the Barbed Devil, as that thrash attack did land. And that is a 3 there, +4 for 7. We'll be dropping the Barbed Devil from 73 to 66 hit points. Very relevant number there, as the Barlgura throws in with yet another thrash attack. The Barbed Devil still finding itself prone, as now the Barlgura seems to be raining down hammer fists upon it, even while it maintains its grapple, as these two conditions don't find themselves conflicting with one another. Although the Barlgura's speed is currently 0, that does not prevent it from attacking. And now it will once again be rolling in with that thrash attack. Now the Barbed Devil finds itself prone on advantage, with an 8 there, plus that 7 modifier, making that match the Barbed Devil's AC, as these creatures seem to be going toe-to-toe with each other. The Barlgura also matching the Barbed Devil's AC of a 15 with that second thrash attack, which does mean that it hits, meets it, beats it, and we will be rolling in with 1d10 + 4 points of bludgeoning damage once more. Rolling in. And a very middle-of-the-road 5 + 4 for 9 points of damage there from that second thrash attack, reducing the Barbed Devil from 66 to 57 hit points. As the Barbed Devil now looks down upon its grounded foe, the creature currently clinging from its ragged hide, and it looked to try to make that tormenting bite land this time. It could really do with doing so right here, as the fight is not looking one-sided either direction currently. Could the Barlgura swing it right here with a land of tormenting bite? Rolling in once again at advantage here, +7 to hit. And a 10 + 7 for 17 does finally mean that the Barlgura's maw has found its mark, and it will now be dealing 2d6 + 4 points of piercing damage, plus 2d12 points of psychic damage, as those fangs are able to sink themselves into the flesh of the Barbed Devil. And so rolling in here, the Barlgura looking to make some crippling impact here. That could have definitely been a lot better. The 2d6 results aren't bad, with a 4 and a 5 coming together for 9. Of course, plus their modifier of +4, bringing that up to 13. But a 1 on the d12, topping that to 14, plus the additional 3 for 17, is a far cry from what it is looking for here. But even so, that is better damage than nothing, and that is going to be an additional 17 points of damage output this round from the Barlgura, which will be dropping the Barbed Devil from 57 to 40 hit points. As yes, the Barlgura may have managed to land that strike, but it certainly could have done better on the damage front. But that is the way of the world with these combats. And with that, we will be handing over to the Barbed Devil, which is going to tug against the Barlgura's fur, using it to right itself, of course using half its movement to break that prone condition, keeping the Barlgura firmly in its grasp as it remains grappled. And because the Barlgura is currently grappled, it will be taking 1d10 points of piercing damage from the Devil's barbed hide as we hand over to its turn. So rolling in, and that is a nice bit of extra bonus damage there, with 7 points, dropping the Barlgura from 50 down to 43 hit points as the Barbed Devil seeks to level the playing field. And then it will be also raking in with its multi-attack once again, a claws followed up with that tail. So first one rolling in, +6 to hit, and a 13 plus 6 for 19 does ensure that that strike lands true, as it once again deals 2d6 plus 3 points of piercing damage. The Barlgura, of course, already finding itself grappled, so rolling in. And with an okay hit right there, could have asked for more, but 2 and a 3 for 5, plus the 3-point modifier to make for 8 more points of damage is nothing to turn away from, as the Barlgura finds itself dropped from 43 to 35 hit points as the Devil's tail twists and lashes, preparing once again for another brutal strike. Plus 6 to hit, rolling in. And an 11 plus 6 for 17 secures yet another hit. And that is exactly what the Barbed Devil needed here, as it will now be rolling in with those 2d10 plus 3 points of slashing damage, as the Barlgura is really starting to look rough right here. So rolling in 2d10 plus 3 points of slashing damage. And once again, 2 4s coming up on those dice there. Yes, it is a different set, but 2 4s nonetheless, with that totaling for 8 points of damage plus the 3-point modifier, bringing that up to a much lower 11. Although that will still be dropping the Barlgura from 35 to 24 hit points as we close out the round here. But with that, we will be handing over to the Barlgura, which does sense that things are slightly turning against it, and it is going to have to do something serious here in order to break away from what is going on here. Going invisible briefly crosses its monstrous mind, but as the Devil is holding on to it, there wouldn't be much use in that, as it would still know exactly where it was. But of course, the Barlgura would also be unable to move as a result of being grappled, which does mean that the creature locked in melee combat is going to continue on as it usually would. It feels that this is the best course of action, rage enveloping its mind, as it once again lashes out with that first thrash attack, rolling in plus 7 to hit. Although a 4 plus 7 for 11 is going to mean that first one misses. First time that's happened this combat, as it rolls in with its second thrash attack. Although an 11 plus 7 for 18, that is much more like it, as once again the Barbed Devil finds its feet swept away from under it as it becomes prone once more, and also takes that 1d10 plus 4 points of bludgeoning damage, rolling in. And with a 6 plus 4 for 10 points of damage, that is respectable output from the Barlgura, as it drops the Barbed Devil from 40 to 30 hit points, as these creatures really do go toe to toe in this bloodthirsty battle. Although that does leave the Barbed Devil open to the Barlgura's tormenting bite. Once again at advantage, it has not had much success with this attack thus far. Will this one prove different, as the Barlgura opens its jaws and aims for another bite, rolling in plus 7 to hit on advantage. And we've got a natural 20! The Barlgura pulls it out of nowhere as it slides the Devil across the ground and opens up a weak point in its defenses, purely exploiting its advantages here in order to chomp down hard upon the Barbed Devil and its exposed flesh. And it has rolled in with a natural 20, meaning that it will be rolling in with 4d6 plus 4 points of piercing damage, plus that crucial 4d12 points of psychic damage. This is a brutal strike from the Barlgura. Will the Barbed Devil be able to face this one and come out the other side alive? It's time to find out. What a barbaric strike there from the demon, as it finds itself in the position to roll in 4d6 plus 4 points of piercing damage plus 4d12 points of psychic damage. So rolling in right here, a mountain of damage dice versus the Barbed Devil. Let's see just what the Barlgura can do with a critical hit. And that is a crippling amount of damage there. Although some of those dice are not as high as they could be. I think it looks like the Barbed Devil's number may be up, with 1 plus 8 there for 9, plus those 2 2s there, bringing that up to 13. Topped up by the 5 and the 6 for 24. And then the second set of 5 and 6, bringing that all the way up to 35 with the Barlgura's 4-point modifier, bringing that up to a total of 39 points of damage, which will be more than enough right here to drop the Barbed Devil from 30 hit points all the way down to 0, as the Barlgura rends and tears away at the Devil in front of it, cementing its status of arena champion well and truly tonight, as it does also do the double deed of embarrassing the 9 hells in front of tonight's audience, and of course reinforcing the glory, the brutal spectacle of creatures that dwell in the abyss. And with that, the Barlgura proclaims its victory to the audience. And I would like to thank you all very, very much for coming through and witnessing this battle with me tonight. Of course, the Barlgura proving once and for all its arena superiority. And if you enjoyed what you saw here, please consider dropping a like on the video, commenting down below, and subscribing to the channel. This was a grudge match that exists outside of our usual league, but we will be kicking off with the CR6 series very soon. The first of our CR6 battles are looking to premiere in the new year. But of course, before that, we do have to announce the lineup of the combatants that will be fighting. Poll has closed over on Patreon, which does mean that we have our roster, and a live stream will also be coming to you very soon as we spin the wheel to pair off the combatants for the league to come. I'll keep you updated via the YouTube post system, so keep your eyes out for a live stream coming out within the next week or so. And with that, as always, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you for an exciting CR6 League, which will be kicking off very soon.